All right, guys, I want to thank you for tuning in to today's debrief. Today, we're going to do another security guard spotlight. We're going to be talking to the one and only, the OG DEFCON 3 security. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Hey, man, I've always wanted an OG status. I'm glad I got one. Hey, I always
Isn't
like to
that
say
crazy?
I woke up and stood up, so I'm not going to complain.
Absolutely, man. Like you said, you've always wanted an OG status. Like when I was a kid, and I would
Yeah,
watch my dad and like other adults or grown men, like when they would just kind of navigate through the neighborhood. Like I always wanted that respect that you see like older men get, and I kind of feel like I'm starting to get to that point. It's a good feeling.
yeah, it's that, you always want to get older, but in retrospect, I'd want to be younger, make some different life choices.
Yeah. So listen, kind of give us a little bit of an intro. Like, where are you located? What's your story? How did you get in security?
Um, well, right now I'm currently at Oakland, California. So they got me in
Okay.
different places. For almost the entirety of the summer, I was in San Francisco, on Mission Street. Mainly, I'm in dispensaries or grow houses, you name it. It seems to be that's where the money is now. But as a regional manager, I get thrown everywhere. How I got in
Yeah.
security? Well, let me take a minute of your time. I own a swimming pool maintenance company, and I had one customer who didn't want to negotiate prices with me. He just said okay to everything. Like, all right, sure. And I'd be like, all right, and that's going to cost you $300 to fix. No problem. Let me get cash. And I'm wondering, where's this guy getting the money to pay me? He just built a swimming pool for 60 grand. He said he paid straight cash for it. Turns out he owns a security guard company. And I'm
Mm.
like, oh, okay. So there's obviously money in that industry. So I started looking into it and I'm like, you know what? I'd like to start my own security guard company. And if this guy was only 23 years old, clearly a millionaire,
Wow.
judging by his house and
Wow.
his pool. If he can do it, I can definitely do it too. So I started looking into it. Here in California, they require a minimum of 2,000 hours as a guard before you can even think about applying to get your license. So here I am. I'm way beyond my 2,000 hour mark. The current company I'm at has been treating me really good to the point where I almost don't want to start my own company because they've been good to me and it's less of a headache, but ultimately I have to chase my dream and start my own company. And clearly I'm going to name it DEFCON 3 Security. Oh, I thought we froze up, man. You were like,
Well, I mean, that's an interesting, situation that brought you. Am I working now? Am I good?
yeah, you're good. No,
Am I
I
good?
thought you froze up. You're the perfect guard, man. You just stand there solid.
That's funny. Well, so how did you end up taking that situation and parlaying it into a YouTube channel? Like, what made you decide to start the channel?
Time. They put me on a site and it was just me, my car, and my phone. And I just sat there, just bored as ever. I spend a lot of time watching other guards and see how they're doing it. And then, of course, I would, look into getting my PPO license and I'd go online and research it. And then I thought, you know what, there's not really any security channels that are being updated right now. A lot of them, if you look at like the top views, their channels are like 4 or 5 years old and they'll have like 40,000 views. And I'm thinking, man, we need some new content out there. We need some updates. And so a little bit of boredom, a little bit of a journal. I wanted to kind of make a journal of my transition from just being a guard to owning my own company. Just started posting, man. I remember when I had only 2 followers and I was like, wow, I can't believe I got a couple of people follow me. This is weird.
Yeah.
I'm about to hit the 2,000 mark. And as most of you guys know, sometimes I don't put videos out for months. So it's just interesting to have that many people watching this. And I see your channel's growing quickly too, but then your content's amazing. So,
What? Wait. What makes you say that it's amazing? Why do you say that?
because you take the time, bro. You take the time to edit your videos, and you could probably get the worst interview ever and just make it amazing because your editing skills and the dedication you put into your channel, it just shows. But I haven't seen any bad ones yet, but I just know that you could that old saying, no, I can't say any bad words. But
Uh,
anyways, you can
what-
definitely put lipstick on a pig and make it look good. So
I appreciate that. One of the things that when I kind of made this pivot. So just to kind of give you an idea, I used to own a gymnastics school. Like I've coached gymnastics since I was 12 years old. My mother ran a gymnastics school. I was a competitive gymnast when I was a kid, and early on, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I went into the military straight out of high school and started coaching at my first duty station at a small gym that was in the area. But I put my time in. When I got out, I opened a gymnastics school, and I have owned and operated a gymnastics school since 2003. So in 2019, I went into business with a friend of mine. Things fell through. I lost about $35,000 and sold my truck, sold my Jeep, sold, a lot of other stuff, and took that cash and tried to start a very small recreational centered gymnastics school. And along with this, I had a fitness gym. And this was leading right into February of 2020 when COVID hit. And so, the city shut everything down. And I'm sitting there after losing $35,000. And this is probably the third small business that I have opened and tanked. And I was just in this complete position of depression. And then after that is when the George Floyd situation happened. So watching everything that was going on, having all this time sitting at home, watching the unrest that was happening politically, I got into firearms for like the first time in my life. Now, in the past, I've had different avenues of law enforcement. I was a state constable for a couple of years in Pennsylvania, which is similar to a sheriff's deputy. I worked as a corrections officer in county prison for almost a year and then transferred to a state prison and did not like it one bit. So I've always had these like little brushes with law enforcement in the past 20 years, but watching that situation with the George Floyd issue and how the country was responding and how people were getting more involved politically and my kids were in college. And I just started thinking to myself, I would really like to get involved in law enforcement. Like instead of being someone who looks at the situation and complains about it, I want to be a better officer. I want to be a part of that change. So the small town that we were in Missouri, I actually applied for the police department. And I got all the way through the written test. I got all the way through the physical fitness test. And I was up for the oral board. And that was the same week that we decided to just cash in all of our chips where we were in Central Missouri and move to Oregon. And part of moving to Oregon was when I was looking at the contract for the police department, they wanted me to sign a 5-year contract for about $32,000 a year. And I was thinking to myself, we're living in Central Missouri. We don't like the politics of this overly conservative area. We lived through an F4 tornado. It was the most terrifying thing ever. I had already lost my business. I had already opened up a second business and that was going down the drain. So we just thought, listen, I could work and do Instacart and make $32,000. We can move to Oregon. We can be in a position where, my wife is around her family. We're closer to the coast. We can get outside. If everything shuts down and the only thing that you can do is be outside, we can be close to the ocean, close to the forest, things like that. So we made that decision to move out here. And I started to pursue the sheriff's department. And right off the bat, from the second that I sent my resume in, I got an immediate response. And they wanted all of my information, and they flew me out to do testing. They flew me out for an interview, and everything seemed like it was an absolute go, and I was going to be hired like that. They were starting out at like $68,000 a year. So it was a no-brainer for us. We sold off everything, moved out to Portland with the intention of me working for the sheriff's department. Fast forward to November, and I get a letter from the sheriff's department that they're no longer interested in me being a candidate. And I, at the time, had already started working in this armed security field. And throughout everything that happened last year, I'm doing executive protection for news agencies during the protest. I'm going to FBI briefings leading up to the election. I'm working in these retail places. I'm working in banks. Like, everything that I've done over the past 10 months with this security company far exceeds anything that I would have ever had an opportunity to do with that small town police department, you know? So it kind of gave me this shift. And like you're saying, I started looking into armed security and looking for information and trying to get people's stories. But like you said, everything was so old and so dated. And, you know, I don't tend to do anything halfway. And part of starting this channel was to try and fill the gap for things that I wasn't able to find. I would look up, you know, information on defensive tactics for security guards. I actually reached out to our governing body here in Oregon, and they were like, well, we teach defensive tactics to the police and we do it to the corrections officers, but we don't do that for security. So like, this is something that literally is just like an uncharted territory. And as I seek out this information and I find it, I want to share that with people, because like you and like me, we're not the only people who are middle-aged and then find themselves in security.
Hey, who said I'm middle-aged, bro? I'm in my early 40s.
I see all the gray right here in that area, just like mine. But yeah, you know, when you pivot into it, there's just not a lot of information for you. So, you know, I kind of agree with that and relate to where you're coming from with just like trying to fill that gap for this security information that you couldn't find for yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. That's a hell of a journey, and you know, I think you made some good choices. In security, I felt like it was beneath me to get into this industry. I'm thinking Paul Blart Mall Cop. I'm looking at these guys and I'm thinking, dude, there's no way I want to do this. And 2,000 hours. Oh no way. But when I got into it, I started realizing, you know, this is more difficult than I thought.
Absolutely.
I had so many incidences happen in my first few months in security, and it's not just security. I'm not just securing something, but I'm winning hearts and minds in the community, and it's going on to this day. Luckily, at this site, you know, it's a little bit more relaxed. I will say that this site has been hit a couple of times by armed guys. We're talking 30 to 40 armed people. So there is an element of danger here, but it's not as bad as it was, let's say, a few months ago. I kid you not, man. And just last year alone, I probably had 15 firearms pointed at me, vehicles driving by, pointing ARs at me shooting back. It was insane. My company at some point was probably thinking, are you a magnet for trouble? But then and then we're talking San Francisco here, the smash and grab crimes are just through the roof, especially Mission Street, San Francisco. Every day I saw an average of between 3 and 15 vehicle break-ins. We're talking heavily armed guys. And at some point, I'm going to put some videos up, but I got to be very tactful of how I put them up. I don't want to like reveal any sort of security secrets or anything. But I just want people to know, like, dude, it is dangerous out there. I get a lot of people, man, they put in the comments, wow, you got a vest on and this firearm, you know, you're overdoing it, man. If they saw the nonsense I deal with on a daily basis, they would either A, be crapping themselves because it's so freaky, it's scary as hell, or B, they would apologize to me and say, man, I had no clue. We had one incident just happened like 2 months ago when I was on my way out of that job. I'm like, I hope I'm not that guy that gets shot on his last day, but like 3 days left on that job site, car busted into another vehicle. It was crazy. Then a guard came out, pulled out his firearm. These guys pull up at the corner and they're all pointing laser-sighted guns at us. And I'm sitting there and one of them just grazed, one of the lasers grazed my vest. And I'm thinking, dude, that's it. It could be game over just that quick. And I mean, I'd go home, tell my wife some stories. Sometimes I show her videos of like, look, man, I had to fire my gun today. And other days I wouldn't tell her how bad it was because it was literally that bad. So, I got a higher respect now for anybody in security because, as you know, we are more likely to die than officers. And there are more security guards than officers in the country. So,
I think that people are extremely naive, and like you were saying, the image of Paul Blart, and I use that
and I was
analogy
one
all
of
the
the
time.
naive guys. I thought, yeah.
Yeah, and we see that. So here in Portland, our company specifically hires a lot of the police officers that either retire or have quit the force. They'll come and work for the specific company that has the old contracts that used to go to the police bureau. So based on the relationship between the city and the police bureau does not allow any of the officers to do any moonlighting. So all of the old contracts that the police officers would have goes to a specific company. I'm not going to name that company, but that company then, I thought I had the hat on for a second. Sorry. That company then third party contracts out with the company that I work for. So we have a lot of police officers that come into our company and are now working strictly as security. And it's a rude awakening that now they're completely alone. There's no backup. There's no one for them to call. The handcuffing in terms of like what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do versus what the police officers, what they have at their disposal is so different. And we have a lot of officers that wash out, that just can't do it because the thought of them being in the same city, facing the same threats, having the same issues that they had as police officers, but now as a security guard, not having the resources, the training, or the backing that they had as a municipal officer, they don't want to be a part of it. And I think that's extremely telling because most people give the utmost respect, most all people give the utmost respect to a police officer, not understanding the backing that a police officer has as opposed to a security guard. We had a situation yesterday at one of the retail locations where there was a group of 2 or 3 people that I, as a security guard, have issues with every single day. Finally, we had the police respond, and they don't always respond to our calls, but finally they responded. And the respect that these 3, I'm not going to call them criminals, but involved people, the respect that they were showing these police officers, it was through the roof. And I was looking at the cops and I'm like, he's got the same vest I have. He's got the same 9mm, the same taser, the same pepper spray. Like he's not even carrying himself as professional as I carry myself. I'm like, what's the difference? And it's that law behind them. And it's that threat of accountability for what will happen if that involved person doesn't follow those commands. The police officer is going to do the same thing that you and I are going to do. But the difference is that the person that they're dealing with knows they have the entire weight of the city, the justice system behind them. And it elevates those cops, Do you think that there will ever be a chance with the defunding that's going on right now? You're in California and I'm in Oregon. We're in 2 of the most polarizing places in the country right now as far as the defund the police movement. Do you think that with that movement gaining speed in these 2 liberal states that we're in, do you see a option for security guards to kind of elevate themselves in terms of how the public sees us while we're filling that gap?
Well, before my company hired me, we went around a round table and asked everybody that was at my company that was in like a senior position about their background. And one of the guys says, I'm an ex-beret. We got a lot of people that were ex-military, but in special forces. And then they came to me and said, so what's your background, Mike? Well, welcome to management. What's your background? And I'm like, well, I got a YouTube channel. And they kind of laughed at me. And I'm like, no, really, I get it. You guys are trained special forces. You've had this extensive military background, but what you don't have is what I have. And that's a YouTube channel that teaches people how to work with what we have. And that is de-escalation. Ultimately, yes, you guys shoot better than me. You shoot straighter than me. You're more tactical than I am. But do you know how to talk to people? Do you know how to de-escalate? You know, you'd be awesome to have around if we get ambushed, but that generally doesn't happen, and we don't want that to happen. So I find that a lot of officers are tactical. They go to the gun range, and there's a sense of enthusiasm. Every time they go to the gun range, they're excited to go. But how excited are they when they have to go to a meeting to learn how to deal with different personalities? Not very exciting, because it's just another meeting. They want to get out there and kick doors in. And I've talked to officers, and I get it where they're coming from. That's exciting. I've talked to officers who said, yeah, I used to work in a town where nothing happened, and then finally got put into another town, like Oakland, for example, where there's so much excitement. And my response to him was, wouldn't you rather be in that town where nothing happened? That means you guys are accomplishing your job. You want peace. But evidently, judging by your answer, you don't want peace. You want that excitement and that craziness that comes along with being an officer. You get a lot of those, and that's what we don't need. And so that's why I think security can bridge that gap or fill that void. We do need security to talk to people and let them know that, hey, you know, we could be public servants, but we can also keep the place safe. I can't tell you how many people think I'm a cop. I don't try to look like a cop, but when you got a vest on and you've got a firearm on your side, they think you're some sort of law enforcement. So the fact that they look at me as that public figure, I go that extra mile to ask people, hey, my man, how you doing? You know, what's your next big move in life? Tell me what's going on. I'm dying to figure out, you know, where you're going to be 10 years from now. Tell me you're going to start a business. I want to know, you know, or, you know, I'll see homeless people and I'll say, hey, man, you know, I got to ask you to leave. You know, it's not coming from me. It's coming from management. But let me ask you a question. Give me a piece of advice in life. Clearly, you've lived a really long life. You've been through a lot of crap. Give me some advice that I can carry with me. And you'd be surprised how people react when you empower them, when you talk to them, instead of saying, hey, I need you to get out of here, man. Let's go. Let's go. And you flash your flashlight. And I find that a lot of officers do that. And they do that out of, I believe, self-preservation, because it gets rough out there, man. You, as an officer, man, these guys are being targeted all day. So the only way to respond is through fear and sometimes through anger. You know, they get so disrespected. Sometimes people think I'm cops, especially going through Oakland. Man, I get people spitting at me and all kind of stuff, you know, throwing their middle finger. Yeah. And I get angry. So my natural response would want to be to get angry back. And I don't, you know, I'm just like, you know what, there's a reason why they're acting this way. And so I think security, since we tend to be a little bit more gentler, at least the good guards, and we rely on de-escalation versus going straight to our firearm, I think sometimes we are a better fit. And the fact that they are defunding and asking a lot of security guards to step in their place, I think it's a good thing. It clearly has its disadvantages because we are, for the most part, undertrained. Earlier, when you said you had to go on YouTube to try to learn defensive tactic techniques and all that, that sucks that you have to do that. But that's the reality. As a security guard, you kind of have to just go out there and buy your own uniform and figure out what works and what doesn't. And I didn't even know, I don't even know what the heck you call it. I used to just put all my gear on my regular belt on my pants. I didn't know how important it was to have like an actual duty belt. And my
so you started running and stuff's like flying off. And
yeah, and I didn't know this because nobody teaches you this in security guard school, which is like 8 hours long or less, right? So, so yeah, we do rely on our de-escalation instead of going straight to our firearms, and I think it's a great thing. I like to see how it evolves over time. That's why it's important to have channels like yours, like mine, so we can talk about our experiences, and hopefully, you know, and that's the thing about social media. It's a lot of information out there now.
Yeah, it really is. And I hope that we can continue to kind of galvanize this community, because the more that we can share knowledge and share information, I think the better for everybody. And, you know, like you said, with social media right now, you know, I'm able to connect with somebody that's in California, someone that's in Texas. And, you know, there are some great, what I call atypical security guards. There's some great guys out there, especially with, you know, the recent pandemic and everything that's happened over the past 12 to 13 months. There's some great people that have made a pivot into this industry. And I think that if we can highlight them and we can get their stories out there, like you said, more people can utilize this as a career and not feel this negative stigma of being a security guard. You know, me going from being a business owner and doing one thing for the most part for the past 20 years, I did kind of have this feeling like, man, like, do I want to tell people that I'm a security guard? You know, like just the image that gives you in your mind is not what I necessarily feel represents me. But I kind of learned that like you have the ability to change that in each person that you meet, each person that you interact with. You have an opportunity to give them a lasting image. When they're coming to you, you don't know them and they don't know you. So if they're coming to you with the negative, lower image of who you are and what you're about, that's for a brief amount of time. But when they leave you, you're talking about a lifetime that you can make a different impression to where they are seeing you, at least you as a security guard, in a different light. So the last question that I wanted to ask you before I let you go here was, what do you think the industry is going to look like in the next 10 years? Like, where do you see the security guard industry going in the future?
You know, the thing with security guards, it's not a seasonal job. It doesn't slow down in the summer and it doesn't slow down in the winter. In the summer, all the amusement parks open, people are outdoors. There's a need for us. In the wintertime, there's a lot of Christmas shopping and there's a lot of theft going on. There's a need for us. So there's always going to be a need for security. I think the industry is only going to get bigger as they're starting to have talks about de-escalate, or excuse me, defunding the police departments. Clearly, the need's gonna go up. But if you just look at the statistics, man, there's like a crime wave going through America with the lack of respect now for authority and stores, shopping malls. There's definitely going to be a bigger need for it. So it's definitely an industry to get into. I'll tell you right now, I just turned down an offer for $53 an hour this Friday because I'm just like, no, I'm cool. I don't need it. So when people say, hey, man, is there really any money in the security industry? You know, my channel is all about knowing your worth, knowing your value, and value your time. I tell people, get out there. You can make the money. Just don't settle for what they offer you. So it's definitely an industry where you can make money. You just got to go out there and demand that money. They're constantly hiring. I have never been rejected on an application when I applied for a security job. I always get a call back, not just me, but my constituents that have very little resumes. They get called back. There's a demand for security. They're popping up everywhere, fly by night too. So, it's an industry to get into, and it's only getting bigger. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Hey, I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate what you're doing. Please continue to upload your own content, your videos. You're doing a great thing. And just absolutely a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Likewise, man. Your channel's amazing. I just encourage anybody to watch this video to check out at least 10 of your videos. Don't just go out, look at one or two. Just kind of get the rhythm of your channel, and they're going to find that you're actually one of the best channels out there. Your editing skills are definitely more interesting than what I offer. I'm in my car. I just talk, bro. This is a journal.
You know what, though? Listen, all due respect, it works. I mean, like it really does. And that's a difference in your approach and my approach, your personality, my personality. But what you do, as stripped down and as basic as it's done, it works. And you have a very genuine nature about yourself. And I'm going to tell you, man, the first time I watched one of your videos, I was kind of like, who is this guy? But there's something about your voice and your cadence, and it's very calming. It's almost like, very ASMR, And so I put on another couple of your videos and would listen to them while I was getting ready for work or while I was driving to work. And, you have a great perspective. Your outlook on things is very similar to mine. So it resonated with me, and that was what drew me in. But each one of your videos, you're very good at how you get your point across, but it's also done in a very humble and calm way that I think for people that feel insecure or maybe new to security, they feel very comfortable having you teach them. And that's something to be commended. So Kudos to you as well, man. You're doing a great thing, and don't change a thing
My,
about
my,
what you're
my wife's gonna watch this video, and I'm gonna say, "See, babe, humble, keep going."
exactly. Yeah.
And she's gonna
She's
be
gonna go,
like,
oh, he
"Oh
doesn't know
God."
you. He doesn't know you.
She'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh God, if he only knew." Hey,
All
man, I
right,
really
brother.
appreciate your time, brother. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Be safe, man.
Absolutely. Same to you. Okay. Stay in touch.
Thank you.
Take care.